Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Johnny Kazemka, and with me today, Scott Connors. How are you doing today?
Good, Johnny. How's it going?
Doing great, doing great. So today we're talking about a little bit of a somber topic, if you will, one of the things that drive the real estate industry. Unfortunately, we're talking about divorce.
Divorce. One of the three D's, right?
Well, death, divorce, and diapers. Yes, that seems to be the one of the main elements that we see more often than I think we would like to, but it's definitely a factor to uh, people buying and selling. It comes out of nowhere, and how do we react to it?
Yeah, it definitely can drive the market sometimes. You hate to get those calls, especially from past clients who are going through something, but it is part of our business, and I think we both have a lot of experience in helping people navigate this potential minefield, right?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a difficult time. Sometimes it's a little bit easier than others, but especially when you see the ugly ones, this is our job is somewhat of the buffer, if you will, to try to keep people on track and to make the best out of a lousy situation because it can be difficult.
Sure. Dave Ramsey likes to say that divorce turns a marriage into a business transaction, and I mean it really does.
Yeah,
And
you're yeah.
so by the time we get called to help get rid of the house, it's literally a business transaction, and our job largely is to help the clients get through, the emotional minefield, the ups and downs. Keep focused on our task, which is, we have a house we need to get rid of. Let's get rid of it, get you the best terms we can,
Mhm.
and hopefully help everybody get a fresh start.
Yeah, and you mentioned the keyword emotion, and we're probably going to be talking about that over and over again in this podcast. But emotion is one of those things that we can't control where it comes from, but we can try to control how we react to it. And
Mhm.
negative emotion, especially things like death or divorce, they are chief among the things that drive anxiety or frustration or anger, and people become reactive rather than proactive. And
What
this
what
is a
was your
time. Mhm.
Yeah, what was your sorry to interrupt you. What was your quotes from the other day that negative emotion cause for what was remember what
Yeah,
was that you threw out there?
the easiest way for anybody, myself or you or anyone watching, to abandon all rational thought is negative emotion. If you make
That's right.
somebody angry enough, they are going to do something irrational. It's just, and it's even the most strong willed person that can become undone with something that, is life changing, which divorce ultimately is.
It
And
sure
it's one of
is.
those times where we try to implore to people to just have an open mind of listening to someone on the outside because this is when you truly need that outside perspective.
I give this advice to my clients all the time anyway, regardless of their situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're buying or selling a home, you're often sort of turning your life upside down, right? And I tell them that my job is to be the calm voice in the storm.
Mm-hmm.
It can get pretty chaotic when you're dealing with all the different moving parts of a real estate transaction, and especially sometimes two at the same time if you're buying and selling.
Sure.
And I tell them all the time, I said, you know what, you can freak out if you need to. It's okay. I'll listen to you. I said, I'm not going to freak out because if we both freak out, we have a problem. But you can freak out. I'll calm you down and say it's going to be fine and help us get through it.
Someone
And
has to
that's
steer the ship.
that's exactly right. Someone's got to steer the ship. So one of what I find to be the trickiest things about helping a divorcing couple sell a home is that oftentimes one of the couple will call, say, me,
Mm-hmm.
and the other side will call another agent. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's got his guy and she's got her guy, and the battleground can begin right out of the gate with that. And have you ever experienced that?
Oh, several times, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where I try not to even interject at that point and let the cards fall as they will, and just remain as passive and neutral to helping the
Mhm.
objective and not necessarily helping one side.
Yeah, and I think once they see that we're really there just to help, we're just there to help navigate this thing. And there's so much of their situation we can't do a single thing about, but there's a lot we can. And the real estate side of it, that's what we do. We'll at least take as much stress out of that as we possibly can to help get through it.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned already, real estate transactions are among some of the most stressful things you do in life under the best of conditions.
Sure.
We said one of the three D's being diapers, and that's the celebratory of the D's. You're welcoming life and you're upsizing and growing a family.
Mhm.
This happens to be the other side of that realm, but either way, real estate transactions by themselves are anxious and stressful, let alone you dump all this on top of it. So yeah, we try to be the neutrons, the little buffers in between all the people that are, you know, most people can have a tendency in this type of atmosphere to get in their own way without even realizing.
Well, for sure. It's really no different than our job every day, which is our job is to, if you're a seller, and typically a divorcing couple would be calling us to sell, it's just simply to help you navigate it, get you the best terms we can, get you the best price we can, take as much stress out of the process as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the things I hear a lot, I had this conversation today, as a matter of fact, and it was unfortunate. I always ask when I get that initial call, and this is the situation, how are we doing here? Is everyone on the same page? Are we, is he on board? Is she on board? Meaning the other party.
Mm-hmm.
And they often say, "Oh yeah, it's going to be amicable. We're friends. No one's hating each other." And I think to myself, and I very carefully
Mm-hmm.
advised them, said, "I hope so. That's the case right now. Be prepared because these things often go south, and they go south a lot faster and worse than you think they could."
Mm-hmm.
Um, in fact, I'm not sure I've ever had one go through that didn't take a downturn at some point. In terms
Right.
of, again, everyone's amicable and getting along. Once you start having a decent amount of money involved and all the emotions involved, it seems pretty inevitable that things get sideways at some point. And it's our job. We take it so seriously to just help navigate that. Again, it's really just an extension of what we do every day. We're going to put our arm around you and walk you through this whole process all the way to the finish line, and in this case, hopefully help you get off to a fresh start.
Yeah. So where would you start if I called you today and said, Scott, my life is coming undone. My world as I knew it as of yesterday. I need to sell the unthinkable. I'm going through divorce. What do I need to do as a seller to get started?
So the first thing I think when I get that call is, number one, these things are very unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple that's getting divorced today is going to try to get back together tomorrow, and they may be getting divorced on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I know, first of all, that this may or may not turn into any business. Maybe a 50-50 shot that it does. And honestly, part of me says, you know what, I hope y'all can figure it out, because divorce is terrible.
Sure.
And I'd rather see a family stay together and see you figure it out than to get a sale out of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I try to lay the groundwork that, all right, look, I can't do anything about your situation. I'm here to help. I'm here to help with the parts that I can. So let's talk about the value. One of the first things that comes up is value, typically, because they may have, depending on what their agreement's going to be and who's getting what money, they may have a big disagreement on what the house is worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of the first way to start to establish some trust between both parties and myself. I often say, look, here's my number. Here's what I think. If you disagree, I encourage you to get another opinion, get whether it's an appraisal or call another agent and get another opinion. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page here. We're not going to do a single thing until everyone agrees on what the price is going to be and what we're willing to accept and so on. So as far as first steps so if it's you, Johnny, which I know it's never going to be because Beth is awesome. I
It's high
hope
praise.
she hears this. No, she is. She's
She'll be
amazing.
joining the team here soon. Yeah.
um, but if that were the case, I would say, first of all, do you guys have attorneys helping out? You need to, most
Mm-hmm.
likely. And maybe we just need to sit down, the three of us, and talk about this whole scenario, the situation, what everyone expects. Really try to come in. I'm not a very salesy guy ever. It's not in my personality, but this is the least salesy I'm going to be ever. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
sit down and talk. Let's talk about your situation, what everybody wants to see come out of this, and how we're going to help get you there.
Yeah, in my conversations, it echoes exactly what you just said. But I like to be a little bit more thorough. Not that we aren't on our other transactions, but there's a little bit
Yeah.
more focus on detail, specifically not so much on the outcome, but on the management of expectations for those particular clients, because this is where we're already dealing with anxiety. You have enough on your plate to deal with other things going on, emotional whirlwind in the background.
Mm.
Having a very clear cut goal or a series of goals, managing those expectations and saying this is how we're going to do them, at least alleviates some of the anxiety that can come with that transaction, and hopefully get us off on the right foot. Because like you said, it just takes one thing, an inspection report, an appraisal report, just getting one out. Even if we're giving the bad news that doesn't come from us directly, if you've received some other bad news that same day, it just seems like your entire world is coming down on you, and it's
Well, sure, and I find that once things start to get contentious in their world, you're in a situation where nobody trusts anybody.
mm-hmm.
And again, we have to be very careful and just kid gloves and document everything. And really, if ever we need to stay calm, it's in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've found whether it's a divorce situation or any other life stress, financial trouble, job trouble, whatever, health issues, I find I'll occasionally have a client who really just seems to be very stressed out about, you know, it could be something as seemingly inconsequential as like their listing photos or the description, or there's one photo they just and they really kind of lose it over that thing. I've
Hmm.
learned in my career that that usually is a pretty good sign there's something else going on in their world.
Oh, of course.
And so you sort of understand that whatever the particular thing is they're going to battle about, or they're going to be upset with us about, or how the transaction is going, has nothing to do with that, right? It's all about the rest of their life is falling apart. um, and so again, it just comes down to being very careful, ever more diligent, as careful as we can be. And when I say careful, I mean like we're caring, like literally caring for them, because we do.
Sure.
It's probably our biggest core value on our team is that we truly care about our clients. And when we're taking someone through such a tough situation, it's never more evident, right?
Oh, of course, you know, you come from a background in psychology, and I have always leaned into any type of self help from any type of, you know, geez, the we have the Connors team library right outside this door filled with all these different books, and
Yeah,
it's one of those things that you mentioned before is that, you know, someone else's bad day and their projection of either that anger, anxiety, who you work with matters in this business, and it helps
sure
to have
does.
known that, look, I don't mind being a punching bag from time to time. If you got to say something to me, you got to get off your chest,
Yep,
because I'm not going to be reactive to it. You know, you can
that's
come up
right.
and almost just open hand slap me, and I would just say, "Man, what happened today?" You know, I'll have a conversation with you. It takes a lot to get to me or you, and I know
Yeah,
that from personal experience from dealing with
it's
us,
true.
you know, this team for so long.
I mean, I've
That
walked up and smacked you in the face a few times, and you
of
haven't really
course,
gotten upset about it. So
but
I,
the
I would never
yeah,
do that. You would
I,
destroy me. But anyway,
but the reality of that situation is that, you know, there's other agents that might not have that type of, you know, through all the quirks and nuances that make up the entire spectrum of human behavior. I'm not going to just react to you having a bad day and then you taking it out on me because you know, we'll get past it. If you haven't dealt with that before and you have someone who, you know, if that's your agent at that time, I can almost assure you things are going to blow up.
how many times in our lives, outside of a divorce situation, are you in a negotiation, or you're haggling through some difficult part of a deal, and the
Mhm.
other agent gets emotional and sort of loses it? I know if I'm negotiating something and the other side gets that emotional, I just won. And
Well,
so
yeah.
the last thing a couple, we just have to be as black and white and almost cold in a way. I mean, we deeply care about our clients, but we just can't get emotional in these
Mhm.
situations. Our job is to help get them to the finish line.
Yeah, if your agent gets emotional, it's time to start looking in other directions, and that's part of. We talked about this briefly. You and I actually have published together different topics, and divorce being
Mhm.
among them. One of the topics is divorcing the agent. You
Yeah.
know, you have to make sure that the person that is handling this, if you find yourself in this facet of life, in this area, uh, I can't say it over enough. Who you work with truly matters. Anybody can still help you get to the finish line, but you know, we don't want you to take the most difficult path, and you know, it's we want you to come out of this as unscathed as possible.
Yeah. So, Johnny, talk about the handbook, what you just alluded to, to tell our audience how they can find it.
Well, you can find it on our website, on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's links all over. Click JK or clickscott.com. We have links to our libraries there. But basically, it's just a guide, a free guide. We have the ebook version, we have the published version, and it's just what, about 30 some pages, very dry reading, all of just little tidbits of information, and specifically talking about what we're talking here, how to manage the expectations. Don't be one of those people that will cut your own nose off to just spite someone else's face,
Yeah.
because that does happen where someone will just they I call it MAD, mutually assured destruction.
Yep.
And some of those people, uh, they're the hardest to negotiate or hardest to work with. They will take themselves out just to take a small piece of someone with them. And
Sure.
it's, you know, we try to at least get in front of that bus and make sure that we don't deal with that situation. Because if we see that coming, then we have to plan for that and say, okay, well, you know, let's at least try to account for this. We're still going to help. I mean, at the end of the day, if the house is going to go, if no one's making payments on it anymore, if, you either lose it to foreclosure. We might as well lose it as amicably as possible.
Sure.
We're the damage control.
One of my goals as a seller's agent when I'm in this situation is to do my best to make sure nobody knows the seller's situation.
Sure.
So when we list that house, it's up for sale. We want to get them the best terms we can. I know as a buyer's agent, I
Mm-hmm.
often walk into a home with a buyer and can fairly quickly tell this is a divorce house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes that's not a pretty scene at all. And so you definitely, when you're selling in this situation, you want to avoid that completely because buyers, they're gonna sense the distress and maybe the desperation and try to take advantage of that. As a seller's agent, if you're in this situation, my job largely is to prevent that from happening. Your house, the fact that you're in a tough spot in your life doesn't change what your house is worth, what you should be getting for it. We're going to try to maximize that the best we can. But would you agree with that, Johnny? What are some of the signs you see when you walk into a house that says, "Oh, this looks like a divorce"?
Yeah, not only do I agree with it, but it is a core requirement to call ourselves realtors. It's
Yeah.
our ethics. We're obligated, that fiduciary obligation to that
Hmm.
loyalty, that disclosure, that confidentiality among them, to not disclose, because that is a positional advantage that a buyer would take if
Absolutely.
given, because there's a complete difference between selling out of luxury and selling out of necessity. If I
Yep.
have an income producing property that makes me so many, thousands of dollars a year, there's a bottom line that I'm going to take because I don't have to sell it for less. I can just let it produce income. If I
Hmm.
have to sell because of some life situation that was thrown on me that I never accounted for,
Totally different scenario.
you don't have a choice. So yeah, given that if that information is shared, and it's a great point that you bring up, Scott, that if we want to make sure that even elements within the home that we still want to have, if we can manage it, if it can be amicable, family pictures on the wall or whatever, to make it at least still appear staged and to keep that pretty close to your chest.
Yeah, it really is. Aside from the positional advantage, it's heartbreaking. I've walked into homes that you could just tell they really have they're just distressed.
Lost hope.
They've lost hope. There's a ton of deferred maintenance because when your life is falling apart, the last thing you're thinking about is pulling the weeds or touching up that paint. Um, and it's just awful to see. So we certainly are going to try to work with our sellers to keep that from happening.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give, at least in that sense, of how to manage that? If I was an ex boyfriend or ex fiance or ex husband, I should say, going through
Yeah,
this process, and I'm
soon
the
to
one
be. Yeah,
that's and I was the one that's making it hard. I'm abandoning the property. I'm about ready to put concrete down the drain. How would you stop me?
sure. Well, you're not doing yourself any favors. It's the definition of cut off your nose to spite your face.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in your life, things are falling apart. You may be feeling kind of hopeless, but the truth is there is going to be a fresh start, and let's get a clean break here. Try to separate this fairly significant financial transaction from all the emotions and I'm going to hurt her, she's going to try to hurt me, that kind of stuff. Let's get this over with. Um, get out of it with as little damage as possible, so we can get our lives back on track and anything like that happens when they're really trying to hurt each other, it's just not a good idea. So we're gonna try very hard to empathize there and say, look, let's just get the house done,
Mm-hmm.
and then y'all can get on with your lives.
Yeah, and unless the house is completely paid off, because that does change a little bit of the conversation, where one side might want to buy the other side out or half. Or have you ever
Sure.
experienced any of that? Because
Oh,
it does
sure.
change. It changes the dynamic when a lender is not involved.
Yeah, oh, sure it does. And then you're typically just fighting over value. You're
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get two or three opinions on what it's worth and how much is he going to give her, or she going to give him. So house typically isn't coming on the market. I think as hard as it can be, it really comes down to, follow our lead,
Mm-hmm.
separate the emotion from this part of it so that we can get this part done and you can get on with your life.
Well, I think that speaks to your character, and I would like to think it would speak to mine as well, being in that
Yeah, for sure.
scenario, because we have our job isn't sales as much as people say it is. At least I say so.
Yeah,
I say it's
at all.
consultation, and the consultation is always free. So if there's a scenario that you might be facing, as far as, or someone who might be facing divorce as a life altering event, uh, giving advice to someone that says, look, I just want to buy this other half out, but depending on what the divorce decree might say or who's doing what, there's options that don't necessarily involve us listing the property, getting a
Yeah.
commission at all. It's, hey, okay, let me connect you with a different lender here, someone who might be able to refinance some equity in the home. Now that becomes your new mortgage, and we're still going to put you on the best path possible. We'll give you options A, B, and C. It just so happens that option C might be listing the property for sale.
It's
But
possible, sure.
we're never, at least I know you never we're not going to put ourselves in front of someone else's livelihood just for a paycheck.
No,
And
of
we
course
never
not.
have. So to
Yeah.
that extent, like I said, this consultation, this is where I always implore anybody that is going through these types of detrimental situations to at least be open-minded to outside influence, to some advice, because this is when you truly need it, when you don't even realize it.
And that kind of brings us full circle to where we started this with that initial meeting and just trying to build that trust to say, look, I'm not here to take sides. I'm not here to help either of you hurt the other one. My job here is you've got a house to sell or not. Let me give you the best advice I possibly can and help you navigate at least this part of this really tough part of your life.
Yeah, great advice. Well, do you have anything else that you think you might want to add to the podcast?
No, it's good stuff. It's one of the tougher parts of our business, but it's kind of a necessity. So, as much as it's difficult to go through that with someone, I have had people who, I help them with that process. I help them each buy a new house, and
Mhm.
they get a fresh start, and things end up okay. So,
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you can't see the forest for the trees while you're inside
no,
of
it's
that bubble, and once you're out of it, you're it's every storm does run out of rain at some point. So
for sure.
don't let it be the undoing of your entire life. So,
Yeah,
well, Scott,
absolutely.
yep, thanks for the wisdom as always. We'll see you on the next podcast. I'm Johnny. See you
All
next
right,
time.
Johnny, take care.
Thanks. Bye.